Hello, hello. We're live. We're live. Oh, did you hear me? I think Sadie heard me go, whoo. We're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. I've got Sadie here, as you can see. She's very gently taking her carrot. Can you hear that? Little puppy carrot ASMR for you. Happy Friday. It's so good to connect with you. I've been looking forward to this live stream all week. I know we're doing it just a little bit earlier than we did last week. I think last week was 2 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Eastern on the dot. We are started with this live stream. I like this time. I think we're going to stick with 1:30 at least through the rest of September. Do you see something, Sadie? She might see something out the window. The window's over here behind you. And she's perked up quite a bit. Do you want a carrot? So we're going to do a few things today as we have people settle in. I'd love to hear where you are joining from today. Looks like we've already got Girly C. Hello, welcome. Good to see you. And it's 1:30 a.m. on a Saturday in the Philippines. You're joining this at 1:30 a.m. Oh my gosh. Welcome. I am always asleep at 1:30 a.m. So I appreciate you taking the time to connect. And Leo, of course, thank you, Leo, always for launching us into the live stream experience, all of your positivity. Really appreciate you being here as well. So we're going to get into it today. There's been so much happening the last few days with the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni case. We've got court documents that are hitting the docket about this Taylor Swift deposition. And I actually just saw in maybe the hour or so before coming live with you today, there was another court document, this time from Blake Lively's legal team, about the supposed deposition that's going to happen, not going to happen. You drop a comment. Let me know what you think. Whether Taylor Swift will be deposed October 20th to 25th. Here, I'm going to let Sadie's trying to figure out how to lay down in my lap here. You're going to disappear, baby? Are you going to lay down or you're just going to hang out? I think you're just going to hang out. So today we're going to talk about the astrology of this potential deposition of Taylor Swift. Of course, because it's potential, who knows if it'll actually happen, but I was already taking a peek at the astrology for Taylor Swift for that time period. Also, in one of the other recent court filings, we learned Justin Baldoni's deposition dates as well. So we can take a look at the astrology of that. And let's see here, joy in general. Hi, girly. My mom is from Angeles City, by the way. Oh, it's so good to have you all connect in the chat. Thank you so much for being here. Love seeing you and your sweet pup. She is a sweetie. She is a sweetie, and she is feeling better. So thank you, everyone who said kind things in our live stream last week, sending positive energy. Okay, she's finally settling in my lap. Oh, okay. For Sadie, I think it was an allergy reaction to something she had last week, but she's feeling a lot better now. So a little bit more like herself, her sweet self, her little crazy self as well, because she is a miniature Australian Shepherd. So she's got some energy. So thank you all for coming. Let's talk about what's been going on in the court docket, even the last few days. Okay, so this is how we're going to structure things today. We're going to talk about the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni case and get into the weeds a little bit with astrology around some of the things I've already mentioned. And we're also going to look at the astrology of the week ahead, starting September 14th, because if you've been watching some of my recent videos, you know we are in the middle now of eclipse season. We're in the eclipse portal. I'd love to hear from you if you've been noticing anything in your life. Major beginnings, major endings. That's one interpretation of eclipses and eclipse season, beginnings and endings. Another interpretation of eclipses that I see a lot is something's obscured or maybe not visible and then is revealed. So that's another way of thinking of it. And I think we've been seeing some examples in the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni story from the opening of the eclipse portal, in a sense, with our first eclipse, the full moon in Pisces, that happened on September 7th. So we're getting close to about halfway through this eclipse timeline, this eclipse portal. And it seems like a lot is starting to come up to the surface to be revealed in that story. But of course, I'm always curious for you as you look at your own astrology chart in Virgo and Pisces, specifically in your birth chart. Those are the houses that are impacted most by this current eclipse season that we're in. So let's, I'm going to pull up my notes here, because when I was looking at the court document and thinking about, okay, we're in this eclipse portal right now, and what's happening? What are the potential endings and beginnings in relationship to the Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni case? What is being maybe obscured or isn't as visible, but could potentially be revealed? And these were the things that I jotted down just from the last week or so, and let me know what you think as well. So it seems like this was around September 8th, I believe. So just after the eclipse, there was a court filing from the Blake Lively team, and emerged from it was this question of this potential new accuser or someone, some mystery person who was saying in their declaration, which of course it's redacted in the court document. We don't know who this person is. I know there's a lot of speculation out there in the interwebs about who this could be, but someone coming out and saying that they had experienced, I believe it was verbal abuse was the language that was used from Justin Baldoni. So I imagine you have your opinions about that and what that is, who that could be. But that was one example from this eclipse portal that stood out to me, where there's this mysterious, not visible person. We don't know their identity. And it does make me wonder if at any point we'll find out who that person is. Will the unredacted version of that declaration come out to the public? Will it be revealed in some other way? So that's one example of this eclipse energy and how I can see it coming through in the filings in this case. And then we also have this back and forth, it seems, through a few different court documents on the communications in relationship with Case and Coslow, who are, there's been this back and forth, right? There's this push and pull between the Lively side and the Wayfair side around what communication is actually privileged or should be protected by it being work product and should not be given over to the Lively teams. So that's another thing where I'm like, okay, here's this theme around something that's not visible. Will it be revealed in some way? Will it have to be handed over? So that's another snippet from the court filings that I thought was really interesting. And there's a lot of conversation, it seems, in the court docket right now around timelines. When is discovery actually supposed to end? All these requests for extensions, and it's going in both directions, at least from what I can tell. And that's really interesting to me, again, in this eclipse portal, this question of when will discovery actually end? Because once discovery ends, we're in a whole other phase of this lawsuit that's beginning. So it doesn't surprise me that there's a lot being churned up right now around timeline and endings and having to define these things. But of course, I think, let me know what you think, but it seems like this piece around Taylor Swift's potential deposition is probably one of the biggest revelations from the last week or so. Let me know if you think there's something else that is just as big or even bigger than that little news drop that happened in the last 24 hours through the court filings. I'm going to check in the chat and see. Hello. Always appreciate you being here. Khaleesi Direwolves. Good. It's so good to connect with you all. But let's get into the actual filings first. We'll look at the court docket. I know there are other content creators who really go in depth into the court filings. We'll kind of skim it for the purposes of our astrology chit chat today. And then we'll look at the astrology for Justin Baldoni's chart, potentially Taylor Swift's chart. I might end up doing like truly dedicated videos to these things, but I wanted to work with the energy of the moment. And we were going live, and this is like hot off the press. We've got court filings this way, that way. I'm like, whatever. We'll just chat about it. And maybe you can help me out process this in the moment as we react to it and see what I might actually intentionally bring into a video itself. And let's see, there's a question. Did you miss the carrots? The carrots are here. And if you watch the replay and go back to the beginning, Sadie's made her appearance. She has to mind her energy. She's like, Janessa, chat, folks. I'll make my appearance at the beginning. And now she's actually like napping in my lap at the moment. So she might reemerge for some carrots later. Let's see. Hi, Maria. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So good to see you all. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen so we can get into, actually, I don't know if you saw her little snout. Sadie was like, let's see. Yeah, she is getting some rest. She is. It's so funny having a miniature Australian Shepherd. Side note. Side note. She is so energetic. And she is such a couch potato. She will, I'll take her to the park, I'll take her to the field, and she'll just run. She loves, I have that little like chuck it thing. If you're a dog person, you know what I'm talking about. It's that pole thing that like sticks to the ball. I'm describing this horribly, but it allows you to literally like chuck the ball super far, and then your dog can run after it. And it's an amazing contraption because then you don't have to pick up like the really muddy, dirty, slobbery ball with your hands. And anyway, I'll take Sadie to the field and we'll just chuck it, and she'll run and she'll run and she'll run. And she gets so excited because she knows we're going to the field when I put her in the car, and she can pick up on, we're taking a right at this intersection, left at that intersection. She's so smart. She knows that that's where we're going. That's where our destination will be. And then we'll come home and she's just like out on the couch. She's so funny. Let's see. Like a child. Well, yes, like a child. I don't know what having a child is actually like, but she is my child. Yep. So much of my life revolves around her. I'm not going to lie. Let's see. So I love the Chuck It launcher. Yeah, it's so nice. It's so nice to have a Chuck It for a high energy dog. But let's get into, let me make sure I have the right tab pulled up here for you all. Let's look at the letter from the Wayfarer side first. Technology, share screen. I believe this is the correct one. Let me add to stage. Yes. So this is, I hope you all can see this. Let me zoom in a little bit. Is that better? Is that better for you? Oh, okay, that's a little too zoomed in. Okay, so this is the letter that Garofalo, I'm not sure how to pronounce Ellen's last name, but lawyer from the Wayfarer parties. This was written and filed on September 11th. This was just yesterday, 2025, which is interesting. I was just looking at Justin Baldoni's astrology. We'll get into that a little bit later, but let's just peek at this, because this, whenever me as someone who practices astrology looks at court filings, I'm always on the lookout for dates, right? Because for what we do here in this little corner of the internet, of course, You know, we can have our impressions, our opinions, we analyze things, use critical thinking around just the facts of the case, what we're seeing, what's being covered on mainstream media, social media as well. And when we apply this lens of astrology, dates are so important because that's what helps us identify then what's going on in the sky with the planets astrologically on that particular date, and then connect that information to Blake Lively's birth chart or Justin Baldoni's birth chart or whomever we're looking at. So when I was going through this filing, this is really interesting. As we scroll down, I'll just read some of this out loud to you. So as counsel for Wayfair, blah, 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 we know who's on the Wayfair side. We write in opposition to Blake Lively's motion to modify the court's case management plan and scheduling orders. Ms. Lively has not shown good cause for her proposed modification. So once again, this is dealing with that question of timeline for the case. When do certain things need to be completed? First, Ms. Lively has known about the recently produced and forthcoming documents. Wait, is this the wrong one, guys? No, sorry, this is the right one. Okay, I'll restart. Sorry, I got a little distracted there. Also, just so you know, I mentioned this in one of my recent videos. I have Invisalign now, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm getting aches, like headaches and jaw aches. I have the Invisalign in, and then I also have those rubber bands that it's a whole process. I feel a little insecure about it, but I noticed that my focus isn't quite there right now because I'm just dealing with a little bit of discomfort. So apologies. Let's rewind and start with this paragraph again. First, Ms. Lively has known about the recently produced and forthcoming documents for a month long before she agreed to take defendants' depositions beginning on September 15th. So that's interesting, right? That the defendants' depositions are being initiated on September 15th in the middle of this eclipse window. Eclipses all about beginnings and endings, taking what has been obscured or not visible and revealing something new. So that stands out to me just for the significance of those depositions. On August 4th, 2025, Ms. Lively moved to compel a further document production from the Wayfair parties, and sought several months' worth of additional communications. On August 11th, the Wayfair parties opposed Lively's motion to compel, but indicated they would produce numerous additional documents. Following the briefing, the parties agreed to September 15th, 2025 for Steve Sarowit's deposition, September 18th and 19th for Jamie Heath's deposition, and September 21st and 22nd for Justin Baldoni's deposition. In other words, at the time the parties agreed on deposition dates, Ms. Lively knew that additional documents would be forthcoming prior to the depositions. So I think this is interesting because I don't have information to look at the birth chart or the astrology chart for Steve Sarowitz or for Jamie Heath. That's nothing I've sought out. I also don't think it's publicly available information. So we can't really play around with those charts. But Justin Baldoni has confirmed that he's Virgo rising through a public Twitter post that I found. So that's why we've been working with Justin Baldoni's birth chart and his astrology. And so these two dates, September 21st and 22nd, those stood out to me for sure, because if you've watched the eclipse videos I put out recently, we know that September 21st is an eclipse. We have the new moon in Virgo and the eclipse. So that is what is bringing his deposition date. Hi, baby. Sadie wanted to say hello, I guess. Do you want a carrot? September 21st, Justin Baldoni's deposition date seems like such a poetic like close to the eclipse portal and this idea of revelations and the fact that he is Virgo rising. So this eclipse is happening in his first house. Seems pretty monumental. It also echoes back to Blake Lively and how she had her deposition, if I recall correctly, it was when there was a lot going on in her first house of Leo. So there's a nugget there that we can take from this where Hey, hi, hello. You just want to be the center of attention. She's like, Justin Baldoni deposition, what? I want carrots. What I was trying to say, oh, now she's dropping carrots all over my lap. Great. Half chewed slobbery carrots. It's just interesting that these depositions are occurring when there's very significant astrology tied to both these individuals' first houses. The first house is the house of self, the house of direct actions we take, the actions that we take that really set our trajectory for where we're moving in life. So these are really, really interesting. Let's see. What are you all thinking? So Chiro says, I think something very revealing will come out during Justin Baldoni's and JH's Jamie Heath's deposition. The timing of it is very striking. I agree. I'm really interested now about Justin Baldoni's deposition. And Jamie Heath's is also happening in that lead up to the eclipse. Sarowitz is in the lead up to the eclipse. These are these moments in following this case. Hi, Sadie saying hello. These are the moments when I've been following this case, because I've been following this case since really intentionally since January of this year. And what is up with you? Are you just I'm so interested to know if Justin Baldoni works with an astrologer. He doesn't work with me. I'll tell you that. I don't know him. I've never been in contact with him. I don't have any of my clients. No one is involved in this case. So, I don't have insider information. All I have is publicly available information. But they're just these moments when the astrology seems so poetic, so potent, just so like, really? Like Justin Baldoni is having his deposition on the new moon in Virgo and eclipse in his first house. Is he working with someone to like pick that date, elect that date for him? But this is what happens with energy. Sometimes things just align. And whether we intentionally try to direct that energy or we're kind of just going with the flow of how the energy moves, I don't know. That's a mystery to me, but I'm very, very curious if he's worked with someone with astrology and is electing some of these dates. Do you want a piece of carrot? There you go. And let's see. Just checking out your comments. Poetic indeed. Yes, poetic indeed. And Christine says, puppy time. Yes, it's puppy time. It's puppy time. I'm glad she's being a little bit more social today with you all. She's been a little, I don't know. She's been in a very big like nap mode today. So let's get back. We have limited time. Okay. So that was the first big date reveal. But let's get into the Taylor Swift information really quick. So let's skip down. I know that there's some back and forth about the signal messages and when will they be produced, what's privileged, what's not privileged. We're still waiting to see how that is resolved. But that's also a potential reveal. I don't know. Will those signal messages that get handed over to the Lively team by September 12th, meaning today's Friday, September 12th, will they be available? Will they just be redacted? Like what could be revealed from those communications as well? And I keep highlighting how Pluto in Justin Baldoni's sixth house of Aquarius just seems so significant for him right now. Because the sixth house is related to his work, but also specifically people that report to him. So this Pluto energy of intensity, control, power dynamics, transformation is churning up a lot in that area of his life right now in the power dynamics related to people who work for him, that he contracts with. And for a little while now in our conversations on this channel, we've been talking a lot about the role of Jed Wallace and Melissa Nathan and these others, probably by extension, Case and Coslow. And this energy, if you watch my latest video that I just put out about the significance of the outer planet transits, meaning Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus, check out that video because we go into a little bit more depth there. But over the next few months, a lot of that Pluto energy is really going to impact Justin Baldoni's sense of identity, authority, and leadership because it's going to conjoin with his sun in his birth chart. So that's my little 2 cents. Let's just get into this Swift stuff, though. So this paragraph here says, finally, Ms. Lively misleadingly implies the Wayfair party seek a I'm sorry. I'm gonna restart that sentence. The rubber bands. Finally, Ms. Lively misleadingly implies the Wayfair parties seek a blanket 30-day extension of the discovery cutoff date. In fact, the Wayfair parties requested an agreement solely to take the deposition of Taylor Swift during the week of October 20th to 25th due to Ms. Swift's pre-existing professional obligations. Whether the court agrees to the broader modification sought by plaintiff, the Wayfair parties respectfully request that the court modify the scheduling order for the sole purpose of accommodating third-party witness Taylor Swift, who has agreed to appear for deposition, but is unable to do so before October 20th, 2025. So interesting. So now, in addition to being able to look at the deposition dates for Justin Baldoni, September 21st and 22nd, we can look at the potential deposition window for Taylor Swift of October 20th to the 25th. Now, the time of Taylor Swift's birth is highly debated. Don't know her rising sign. I'm like currently between a couple rising signs. I did a video on my channel about how I think it's possible she could be Sagittarius rising in her astrology birth chart. I could also be convinced of her being Pisces rising. I've been looking at that chart for her too. So even though we don't know her specific birth time, we can still look at what's happening in the sky astrologically and how that's activating specific planets in her astrology birth chart. We just can't use the houses of the birth chart to really nail down specific areas of life that are impacted by those energies. But we can still speak broadly about those energies. And I'll show you how to do that because some folks don't have their birth information, right? You don't have your birth certificate. What family members say about their estimates for you may or may not be accurate. So there's still ways to use astrology for your analysis. And on that note, let's get into it. I'm gonna check the chat here. We've got carrots. TGIF puppy. I know, Sadie's just the princess. Just the princess. And Paul Berry says something interesting. I think it may end the case. I think you're referring to this whole Taylor Swift deposition, what could be revealed. We'll see. I think the latest court filing from the Lively team, which I don't think we have time necessarily to get into in depth, but the gist of it from what I recall is that the Lively team is now pushing back and trying to say, whoa. This Taylor Swift deposition, October 20th to 25th, that's outside the window of what we think is appropriate for the deposition timeline and when they need to be done. And they're arguing that, hey, the Wayfair parties had plenty of time to do this before. You okay, baby girl? You okay? She just went, you okay, Sadie babes? Okay. She's okay. Dogs, I swear. How they're so adorable. And they're also so gross sometimes. Just like kids, right? Like we were talking about earlier, just like kids, just like babies, you know, tolerance level for like smells and just weird things, it increases when you're taking care of another little being. Do you want another carrot? Should we do some puppy ASMR? That's good ASMR. Good puppy carrot ASMR. Okay, I have the other piece. Then we got to get into the astrology, girl. Oh, you're taking your time. Okay. Does she need water? Does she need water? She might be okay. I think she's okay for now. She's chilling. I wish you could see her. I can't like change. Once I have my camera set up, it's really hard to shift it, but I wish you could see her. She's just like sprawled out in my lap. Let's get into some astrology. I'm going to share my screen again. We're going to look at my Astro Gold here. We need a puppy cam. I know. You know, I've been trying to think about that because I would love to share more of these funny moments with Sadie throughout the day because she's hilarious. I need to do this. I need to change my Instagram. So I have, as you may already know, I have multiple YouTube channels. Okay. I've got Astrology with Janessa. I have Health Sense with Janessa. I also have a personal Instagram that's currently private, but that tends to be where I don't post anything like Instagram posts, but I do occasionally put out little videos of Sadie on my stories. And I did one today, but my profile's private. So I need to change that. But that might be a way where it won't be full puppy cam, but it might be a way where you can see some of the shenanigans that Sadie gets up to. Let's see. Here's another one. Churro says, the timing of Taylor's deposition is interesting too, because it's about a week after her album release. Could this be, which her album release is October 3rd. So it's a few weeks. Yeah. Could this be PR related to keep Taylor's name in headlines and push album sales? I have no idea. I have a feeling, I don't know much about Taylor Swift's public relations team, but when you get to that level, I can only imagine with your career and your level of celebrity and fame, you have the top, like, most competent people working for you. I mean, how could you not? To be able to get to that point where Taylor Swift has gotten to be like arguably one of, if not the most famous music artists in the world, and to maintain that for years. So who knows? I'm sure she has a whole team of people around her who are helping her navigate these kinds of decisions around timing of things and this and that, because her projects are probably endless. But on that note, let's get to astrology here. We only have time to do a little preview, which we've already started to talk about, a little preview of the astrology around the Justin Baldoni deposition, September 21st to 22nd, and the Taylor Swift. We'll call it the deposition window currently, because we don't know if it's actually going to happen. And if it does, when will that happen? But there were certainly some things I noticed when looking at the astrology. And then I still want to spend just a few minutes at the end to call out some of the energy of the upcoming week for you, in case you're following along with your own birth chart and appreciate that kind of analysis. So let me go to the screen here. I know this is a lot of information. Let's look at Justin Baldoni first. I'm going to edit this chart. I use New York as the location for all of the transits for this story, just because it's being dealt with in the Superior Court of New York. Let's change this to September 21st, 2025. So you'll see here, and like I said, I might do a whole dedicated video on this. This is just a little preview. But you'll see Justin Baldoni's birth chart in the middle here, the transits, meaning where the planets are as of September 21st at 12 a.m., New York, for him. And as I've already mentioned, what really stood out to me is this is the day of the new moon and solar eclipse that's happening in Virgo here in his first house. So we have the moon conjunct the sun, and it is an eclipse because this new moon is happening close enough to one of the nodes of the moon. This is the south node of the moon at 18 degrees. So because that lunar event is happening in close proximity to the node, that's what creates an eclipse. So new moon, it's an eclipse. We've already talked about it. What could be revealed coming out of that deposition? I'm going to be fascinated, especially because this energy is so concentrated on the part of Justin Baldoni's chart that is about him and his direct actions. And the other thing that I want to call out that's really important here, and I talked about this in the eclipse video for the month, if you want to go watch that and do a deeper dive into the eclipses and this eclipse season, you may recall that Saturn for this new moon in Virgo is at 28 degrees of Pisces. You'll see it over here on this side of the chart. The opposite side, I hope you can see my cursor. Yeah, okay, good. So you can see my cursor. So Saturn is going to oppose that new moon. Yes, Sadie. Saturn will oppose the new moon in Virgo. So that brings in this element of boundaries, containment, saying no to something, having more of a definition. So what will be defined truly during that deposition process? What thank you for the kisses, Sadie. We'll just have to see. And Saturn is the planet that is most concerned with cold, hard reality. Like Saturn doesn't care about your fantasy, your what you hope could be. No, Saturn is like, no, this is what is. This is the reality. So this is super interesting that his deposition is occurring when Saturn in his 7th house of partnership, close partnership and collaboration, which could pertain to Blake Lively. I mean, she was a close collaborator, right? I mean, it didn't go well by any means, that relationship, but they did work very closely together on the film. You know, I also think about what could come up with the Jamie Heath deposition too. From what I understand, just from what I've seen online, it seems like Justin Baldoni and Jamie Heath have worked very closely with one another. So that's another example of that. So really interesting. And then I think the other pieces that I jotted down, I'll get into this in more detail maybe in another video, but let's see. There's also a lot going on September 21st to 22nd, specific to Justin Baldoni's chart. In particular, we have Venus at 2 degrees of Virgo. Here, I'll point it out to you. And that means that it's forming a sextile with his natal Pluto at 2 degrees of Scorpio in his 3rd house. And the 3rd house deals with communication. And a sextile is an opening, it's a choice point. So how powerful is it that Justin Baldoni is going to show up to this deposition? I wonder where it'll be. I wonder if it'll be in New York or somewhere else. But he'll show up to this deposition where Blake Lively's team will depose him. They'll ask him questions. And he is literally put in that seat, in that chair, needing to communicate what I imagine is his truth around all of the events, right? And so that 3rd house of communication, speaking to those Plutonian themes of power dynamics. Because this is still part of what this whole process is supposed to get to the bottom to, right? What were the actual power dynamics at play? Who had the power? Who really had the control and the influence throughout the It Ends With Us filming process, and then also beyond the editing, you know, the premiere, the marketing, all of that. That is a critical question. So that stood out to me as well, that his 3rd house very much being activated by Venus, which is the planet of relationships, and even more specifically, women, right? So that relationship with Blake Lively, with this woman, this primary relationship on the set and afterwards. And that stood out to me. I think what we'll do is I'll save the rest of it for a video, but that's a little nugget for you. Little preview of what's to come. And really the biggest thing is the eclipse more than anything. That just really stood out to me. But let's get to Taylor Swift. Again, we don't know if this is her correct rising sign. I have her as a Sagittarius rising just for funsies, but we won't look at her ascendant necessarily or the angles of her chart, because those are the points that are really sensitive to her birth time. But let's just take a look at what's happening. And let me change this to, let's start with the first date, October 20th, 2025. When we look ahead, that's so crazy to think that that's still well over a month away. But October 20th, 2025, you'll see here the start of the day, how it relates to her chart, and things that I want to point out from a mundane astrology perspective, meaning the astrology that impacts all of us. It's not just specific to Taylor Swift's birth chart. These are the transits that you are going through. I'm going to go through around October 20th to like the 22nd. That seems like a really critical window. The first is that you'll notice here we have Mercury at 19 degrees, and it's forming a conjunction with Mars at 19 degrees in the sign of Scorpio. And that goes exact on October 20th. This stands out to me because Mercury, it is related to communication, which would obviously be the focus of a deposition, this communication, this back and forth, this sharing information that Taylor Swift would be doing in a deposition. But Mercury also represents lawyers. So it really puts this emphasis on the role of lawyers in that conversation. And Mars is the planet of conflict. So let's just, even if we just take astrology at its most basic concepts, right? Mercury conjunct Mars, we have this energy of a little bit more combative or slicing communication, really slicing down into potentially the truth of something. Scorpio is a deep, deep water sign. It's the fixed water sign. And when I think of Scorpio, the image that comes to mind is, those like Planet Earth shows. I haven't really watched many of them, but the like National Geographic, where they do like the deep sea version, the deep sea episode, and they're going down, 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 and it's just so dark. It's like the deepest, darkest point of the ocean. That's kind of the energy that I think of when I think of Scorpio. And so that's really interesting, right? That's one of the energetic signatures opening up this potential window where Taylor Swift might be deposed. And this is also important because on the next day, I think the 21st, we're actually going to have a new moon in Libra. And Libra is the sign that's ruled by Venus, and Venus will be in Libra at 9 degrees in the sign that it rules. And Libra and Venus are once again related to relationships, to this emphasis on the bonds we have, the attachments we have. So that's an interesting energetic signature too, as well. Will Taylor Swift be deposed on the 20th? Will she be deposed on the 21st? I don't know, but it continues to build in that window, because the next day, is it the next day or maybe it's the following? Here we go. So on the 22nd, on the 22nd, you'll see here as we move from 12 a.m. on the 22nd to 12 a.m. on the 23rd, we have the sun moving into the sign of Scorpio. So that's another just energetic imprint of what does it mean to bring the sun, the planet of illumination, into Scorpio, into the watery, emotional depths, the intensity, to bring light there. to bring more a sense of objectivity there. So that's really interesting to me as well from an energetic perspective. On that same day, we also have Neptune moving back into the sign of Pisces. So a lot of water, a lot of emotion, a lot of, it's interesting that this time period for this deposition, we have a lot of air energy, we have a lot of water energy, we don't have as much fiery energy. And I don't know what your impression is of Taylor Swift. I'd love to hear what you think. But although she strikes me as someone who is very vibrant, very, very energetic. I mean, think about what she does and the kind of stamina that she has to have. There's also this depth to her. Just my opinion, just my impression. I don't identify as a Swiftie. I don't really listen to her music, but I've watched her story, of course, unfold over many, many years. And she's, is she around my age? Let me see. Yeah. I mean, we were born the same year, 1989. So generationally, I kind of identify with her, I guess, just because we've grown up with a lot of the same influences. And I just think it's really interesting to have this very just still water intensity and depth of energy around these days where she may be sitting in the deposition seat and speaking about who knows, right? I'm sure we all would love to be a fly on that wall of what questions will she be asked. Was there actual quote unquote extortion that's been alleged? From Lively's team. What was the experience like for her being a close friend of Blake Lively, going through this experience? What did she see that the public didn't see or that other people didn't see? The communication. And how hard it must be. Now I'm just speaking my opinion, to be honest. This isn't really astrology speak. But I've just been reflecting too on my own close friendships throughout my life. And maybe you can relate to this too, this idea of, well, when you think you have something with someone, a close relationship, that trust, and then something comes up to really disrupt that. I mean, whether you believe Taylor Swift and Blake Lively are still friends or not friends, or you think that that's just totally over, you can have your opinion, right? I don't know. I don't know the depths of their relationship. But regardless, I think it's fair to say that this lawsuit is a huge disruption to that emotional bond. Did it completely sever it? I mean, only time tells with some of these things, in my opinion. So that's really what's standing out to me so far with this deposition. Of course, in a dedicated video, if you want me to do a dedicated video about the Justin Baldoni deposition dates, the Taylor Swift dates, drop a comment below, especially if you're watching the replay of this. I can go into depth because there's more. I took a whole page of notes. I even got out my highlighter and I was like, okay, these are some things that we could talk about. But I think that's it for now. Let me go back to y'all and see. Hi. Let's see what else. Kenny Vixen Music says, just dropping in to say hello. We'll be on the replay crew since I'm so far behind. Love to you all. Oh, thank you so much for being here. Kenny Vixen Music. Hello on the replay once you get to this point. Thank you so much. I love that you guys say hello to each other in the chat too. That just warms my heart. That's so cool. Tiffany, welcome. It's always good to have you, Tiffany. You ask such good questions about the astrology. Okay, so let's get into, we've got a few minutes here, 10 minutes or so. Let's talk about the astrology of the week ahead. And wait, let me see. Technology, do I say this as I think I can share this, as a screen? Or do I share it as a file? Oh, the joys of being still a newbie content creator in many ways. Figuring out technology. Okay. You can see my screen. Magic. Gotta love technology when it works. We've got the month of September here, the calendar. So if you didn't catch the live stream from last week, you can go back to that. In that live stream, we went through the astrology of that first week of September. We did a little preview of the current week that we're in, just to call out to you that this here, we've got today, September 12th, Friday, and Saturday, the 13th. I'm going to decode these symbols for you in case you're not familiar with them. The big thing here is that my hypothesis from last week when we did the live stream, if you recall, I said, okay, pay attention to what happens September 12th, September 13th, around there, because I feel like that's going to be one of the big punctuation points or pivot points in the eclipse story that we're experiencing. That's for you, that's for me, that's for Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni, that's for everybody, right? That energetically, there's something potentially very critical shifting today into tomorrow. And that's because, here, I'm going to adjust my seat a little bit. Sadie's in my lap still, and my feet are falling asleep. Today into tomorrow, we've got the Sun and Mercury forming a sextile with Jupiter. That's what those three symbols mean. But then tomorrow, what's really even more powerful than that is we have the Sun conjunct Mercury. We have a cazimi. It's what we call it in astrology. It means that a planet is exactly conjunct the Sun. It's in the heart of the Sun. That's some of the language that's associated with cazimi. And it can sometimes be this point of clarity. Okay. So what's your theory around this point of clarity in the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni case? Is it the Taylor Swift deposition dates? Is that a point of clarity? Does that have, does that bring some sort of insight to the surface? I know that the Baldoni Wayfair side said, well, this is being scheduled. The Lively side in their filing seemed to say, well, you know, the Wayfair team says that this has been agreed to. It's not agreed to. Has it been agreed to? Where are the receipts? Where are the receipts? Are we going to get some more receipts around some of these conversations today? Or is it something else entirely? And you can think for yourself. Look at Virgo in your birth chart, because that's one of the critical houses and signs for you in this eclipse season. And this Mercury Sun conjunction, this cazimi, is happening there. So what insight, what point of clarity is emerging for you in your life in that area of life over this weekend? And Maria says, thank you. I'm new, so I'm trying to absorb what I'm slow to understand. I so appreciate you being here, Maria. And just know that if you have any questions, you can ask any question around astrology. I love, love, love helping people, especially people who are new to astrology, who are just beginning. I'm trying to learn how to be a better teacher and break down some of these concepts. So I know that I can be better with that. That's one of my goals, especially with this channel, is for people like you who are new to it. How can I communicate this better? So if there's anything I can do to help you, to support you in that, let me know. If you have specific questions, please do not hesitate to bring them up, because this is a passion of mine and I love sharing it. And I think one of the things, let's see, Paul says, hi, Maria, I'm also slow to absorb what I'm seeing, but things are coming together over time. Yes, yes, I think that's so true. It's like learning a language. That's the way I describe it. And one of the best ways that I found that I could learn other languages, I studied Spanish and I studied Arabic in college. It was to go to these places where people spoke them fluently and just immerse myself and just try to, like both of you said, just try to absorb as much as I could. And yes, over time, things started to click and it's like, okay, yes, this is how I would say this in Spanish, or this is how I would say this in Arabic. So it's a process. And Tiffany says, me too. I'm not even sure what questions to ask, but it is so interesting. I know. Well, I appreciate you being here too, Tiffany. And I'm glad it's at least interesting, it's entertaining, it provides something. Um, and it's a journey. It's a journey. I just welcome all of you here and just love that you decide to spend some time with me, with Sadie, on a Friday. That makes me really happy. I'm really grateful for that. So we talked about this weekend, and now we just have just a few minutes to get into what's coming up with the week ahead. And on the note of maybe, let me pull up my notebook, simplifying this a little bit, highlighting perhaps just some key points and not necessarily going through the gauntlet of the next week, because you'll see here, right, that from the 14th to math, what would that be? Wait, 16, 17, 18, the 20th. Thank you. So from September 14th to September 20th, we got a lot of symbols, okay? Which just means when you look at this calendar, there's a lot of energy. There's a lot of shifting energy. There are a lot of changes. On Monday, September 15th, we have Venus sextile Mars. On Wednesday, September 17th, we have Mercury opposite Saturn. On Thursday, be the 18th, September 18th, which is one of the Jamie Heath deposition days, we have Mercury moving into Libra. And when it moves into Libra, it's also going to oppose Neptune. That's what those symbols mean. Then on the 19th, now that Mercury's in Libra, it's going to form a trine with both Uranus and Pluto. That's what those symbols mean. And Saturday, we're going to circle back to Venus, right? Venus had the sextile with Mars on Monday. Okay, well, on Saturday, Venus is going to square off with Uranus. So what does all that mean? What I would encourage you to do if you were to take one date, okay, one of these dates, and to pay attention to what happens in your life. I love working with what's called ingresses, meaning the dates that planets change signs. The date, for example, we know that on September 18th, that Mercury is going to move into the sign of Libra. So it's changing signs. It's an ingress. These dates are important because I often find that we get a hint of what will it mean for that planet and the energy it symbolizes to move through that sign and that house in our astrology chart. So you could take notes. We talked about this in the last live stream. When I was first learning astrology, I have these notebooks somewhere, I had so many notebooks, okay? And I would just, if someone were to read them today, be like, what the heck was she doing? Because I would write down the day and go, okay, for example, Thursday, September 18th, 2025. And I'd write down Mercury ingress Libra. And then I would find out, okay, where's Libra in my chart? Okay, Libra in my chart, fun fact, is my 11th house. Okay, so I'd say Libra is my 11th house. Okay, what does the 11th house signify? Okay, the 11th house signifies groups of people, alliances, friendships. I have a whole video if you want to review of what the astrology houses mean. And then all I would do is I would jot down notes from that day, on or around that day, and I would say, okay, what's going on for me with friendships around that day? What's going on with me for groups of people? Is there anything in particular to communication? Because Mercury is the planet of communication. Or am I traveling? Because that's another Mercury signification. And I just would start to piece things together. So that's a way to start really taking some of these concepts and these ideas and pick one thing. You don't have to ignore the rest, right? It's like pick one thing and just work with that. Just practice that. So that's what I would give to you. What did I say for that day, by the way? Well, what I think is interesting about that day in particular is that With Mercury moving into Libra, it's also going to oppose, this is what that means here, oppose Neptune, because Neptune is still in the sign of Aries. So Neptune is a planet that can be related to imagination, fantasy, play, illusion, sometimes escapism. So I would say that's just an interesting thing about that day, that is part of what sets the tone for this Mercury transit, Mercury moving through, in other words, moving through the sign of Libra. So maybe it's a day where there is a bit more imagination, there's a bit more fantasy at play with mental processes, with what's going on in communication, and tie it to your chart, see what you notice. But also be mindful that because it is Neptune too, sometimes we don't necessarily want to get carried away with that what's the word I'm thinking of? Like over fantasization. It's not a word. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like just being too detached from reality, in other words. So that's a little bit about the astrology of the week ahead. I'm going to come back to you all. Sadie's been so patient. She's been so patient this whole time. I know. I'm gonna have her say goodbye to you in a little bit before we wrap up, because I know we're about at an hour mark, but I want to take a look at the chat and see. Paul asks, how many symbols are there in astrology? So many. I mean, you've seen on my charts, the one that I use, those are really just kind of like the critical few, but the study of astrology is so vast. There's so, I mean, I've been studying astrology for years at this point, and there are so many parts of astrology that I don't even know. Like I've been even, for example, some people do a lot with asteroids, not planets, asteroids, and how asteroids have specific significations. And what does that mean in your birth chart? I'm like kind of familiar with some of that, but I haven't even touched it because I found that for the core pieces of astrology that I study, there's still so much more. And I don't know if you can relate to this too with some other studies, other practices, how we go through phases, right? We go through this initial phase of learning, and then we build up a sense of competence around it, how to work with it, how to practice it. And then sometimes it's like, well, then we almost have to come back to the basics again, just to reorient ourselves on, okay, but at the core, right? Like we added all the bells and whistles as we were learning over years. This is kind of where I feel I'm coming to. Now it's like, okay, but how to come back to the basics. And I think that's why I enjoy trying my best to explain these concepts to people who are new to astrology, because it's such a good reminder for me of just what is the core essence, though, of this planet, of that sign, of this relationship between them. So long answer to your question. There are so many symbols. Like if I were to show you the software I use, I mean, so many that I could just pull in, but I don't necessarily know how to work with all of those. Oh, and thank you, Paul. Paul says, Janessa makes it interesting. I've been on other astrology people on YouTube and they make it difficult. There's a funny side to Janessa and Sadie. I'm glad that we can be entertaining. I'm glad. And I just love the fact that out of the whole Google subpoena stress and drama, that this is where we are now on this channel and in this little community, because I love doing my pre-recorded content. It's fun. I enjoy it. But there's something, it just feels like there's something special about being able to connect with you live. And I love that part of it. And I wasn't doing that prior to the subpoena at all. I've only started doing lives since the Google subpoena. So there you go. I'm glad it's entertaining as well. Maria says, your explaining is good. Thank you, Maria. It's like you said, trying to learn a new language. Yeah, it's like trying a new language. So many layers to it. And Jane says, I know absolutely nothing about astrology. I would love to learn. All I know is I'm an Aries. Well, yeah, so your sun is in Aries. So that's a great starting point. And if you have your birth information, you can find, I gotta resituate. Sadie, I'm sorry. My butt really is going numb sitting in this chair. If you want to calculate your astrology chart, there are websites. I recommend astro-seek.com. You can go calculate your chart. The caveat that I would give is I use whole sign houses. So if you were to fill out that form, put in your birth date, birth location, birth time, those are the 3 pieces of information you would need to calculate your birth chart. There should be an option to change the house system. I like whole sign houses. That's the system I use. So you could start there if you want. I'm also happy to help if you're ever interested in getting some more support there. Which reminds me, in addition to trying to be a good YouTuber, I'm trying to be a good businesswoman too. I need to remind myself to put this out there too, because I just get caught up in the moment and just chatting with you. But I do have openings still for clients in September. I also had some openings come up on Mondays in particular. So if you're interested in a one-on-one consultation, you can sign up for my newsletter, which is linked in the description for this video. And when you get the welcome email for my newsletter, there'll be a link if you want to schedule a one-on-one session with me. If you're brand new to astrology and you're not quite sure you want to do a full consultation, I created a new offering just this month. It's called Introduction to Your Astrology Birth Chart. And that's also linked in the description for this video, where you give me your birth information, I cast your chart, and in about 10 minutes or so, I highlight some of the key characteristics of your birth chart for you. And I just recently completed all the orders that I'd gotten so far in September. So those have been emailed out to folks. If you ordered one of those, please check your email. In an email from me, you'll get a link to a video that you can watch, but you can also download for your records. So all of those have been completed. Thank you so much for everyone who ordered one of those introduction videos. And also I've been working with clients in September. So that's been so much fun to have sessions with folks again. And I've really, really enjoyed the people who have scheduled with me. So just want to give a shout out to them as well. Let's see. Tiffany says, I have a poster and 2 notebooks plus my workbook trying to figure this out. Yeah, I know. It's a process. Oh, that's great though. I think it's also really nice to have something physical to write. I'm old school, okay? I know there's so much that I could do to optimize and be more efficient with using my laptop or my mobile phone, but to be honest, I keep coming back to the notebook and the handwritten stuff. For me personally, I don't know if this is true for you, Tiffany, for me, it helps me solidify my understanding around things so much more when I physically have to write it out. MC, missed you. It's so good to see you. It's so good that you're here. MC says, I'll definitely have to go back to the beginning. Just found out it's happening. This is a wild day indeed. Yes, it's a wild day. It's a wild day. Wild day in the world. Also a wild day with this case. Tiffany, this other Tiffany says, is there a good book that you would suggest for beginners? I have a long car ride tomorrow. I'll have to think about that. Let me think about that, Tiffany. That's a great question. I don't have it here. I used to have it. I had to clear out when I've moved a lot over the years, and I had to clear out. I'm looking over here because I've got like my little bookshelf here. I had to like get rid of quite a few books, unfortunately, in those moves. Let me Google this really quick. There was one that this was one of the first books I read. Now, I don't know if it's necessarily the best books to start with, but I remember when I first started studying astrology, it was the book that I went to. The author, I'm just looking on Amazon right now. The author is Sue, S-U-E, Sue Tompkins, Tompkins, and it's called The Contemporary Astrologer's Handbook. I don't know if I'd agree with what she wrote now. I mean, that was a book, to be honest, I got it in 2017. I think that's when I first started reading it. But that's the book that came to mind. So maybe there's something there for you. That was helpful for me. Again, I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at it, I think, now that I'm at where I am with astrology, and just make sure, like, is that really a good one? But that might be a good one. It's at least where I started. So for better or for worse. Let's see. Just looking through your wonderful little chats. See if there's any other questions. There's a lot of conversation about you're not really birthed, you're hatched. And you guys are funny. These jokes you've got in the chat. I don't know how to save the chat. That's a feature in StreamYard that I haven't figured out yet. But whatever. I know that the chat happens when we're live, and then I think on the replays it's not there. So, apologies to the folks who watch the replay. You're not able to see the live chat, but I love going back and reading your comments on the replay. So if you are watching this for the replay, I want to say hello. Thank you so much for being here. I think we're going to wrap it up here. If I didn't get to a question of yours in the chat, make sure to drop it in a comment below. And it's so good to connect with you. Let me see if Seda will say goodbye. You want to say goodbye, babies? She's a little grumpy pants right now. I don't know if she'll. Oh, she did it. I was like, I wasn't sure she's going to growl at me, because sometimes she gets a little grumpy and she's like, Mom, I've been napping. I don't really want to say hello or goodbye. I'm just a Sadie baby. We'll do one more puppy carrot ASMR for the road. One of my favorite sounds in the whole wide world. Little puppy carrot ASMR. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Check out the latest videos if you want. I also will be adding the link to Rosie's Place to the description for this video, since we talked about the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni case. Forgot to add that in before the live, but I will do that. If you're interested in an organization that does wonderful work in the world, they are a women's shelter and organization in the Boston area. And I just like to highlight them whenever we chat about this case. And yes, I think that's it. I'm feeling awkward now. So we'll just wrap this up and stay tuned. I'm sure things will continue to heat up with the case. And we hope to see you. We hope to see you next Friday, same day, same time, 1:30 p.m. Eastern. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and we'll connect soon. Say bye-bye, babies.